Okay, you guys, last time we talked about, some of the laws related to employers and things that should be expected from your employer. And then the time before that, we talked about patients and how they can sue you and just different things like that. So today, the focus of today's conversation is going to be on how do I avoid a lawsuit? What steps can I take in my practice so that I'm protecting myself? So we're going to talk specifically about risk management. You know, even with the best of intentions, sometimes bad things happen during treatment. For example, I had this one guy that was on blood thinners, and I was giving him an injection, and I think I'd rest my finger, like his tissue kind of got caught between my finger and his incisal edge. And because of the blood thinners, he ended up with this great big hematoma, like it was a bruise all like over his whole face. And he said to me, I think you just gave me a hematoma. And I was like, usually if you pinch them there, they just kind of say, they'll tell you and you move it and no big deal, right? Well, he literally got a big old bruise, and apparently it had happened before. And so it ended up not being that big of a deal, except that he had a big old bruise on his face, but I felt really bad about it. And so anyways, things happen, I guess is my point. So when we want to identify the risks, in order to protect ourselves, we want to, identify what kind of risk could happen, how serious it would be, and then kind of come up with a way to prevent it or eliminate the risk. So that's going to be the focus today. Risk identification. If you really want to find out what people are being sued for or things like that, you look at the literature or incident reporting form. And we pulled up some websites this past week of different lawsuits and things like that. One thing when you look at those that you can identify is if they documented better or something like that, they may have protected themselves. Excuse me. So there is a report of all incidents, and gosh, I can't remember the database now, but I told you guys that I used it when I was looking for local anesthesia, National Health Practitioner or something. But anyway, so we do have to report anything like that. Now, when you make a report, it should be very subjective. So for example, instead of saying, the patient appeared drunk when they came in, you could say the patient had a slurred speech and, or, maybe they're on drugs and they have dilated pupils or something like that. Or instead of saying the patient was very angry, you could say the patient raised their voice, and, angry is more subjective. Maybe to somebody else that's just, blunt. I don't know. The report should say who, what, when, where, and why, and it should be retained in a risk management portfolio, not the patient record. This helps permit tracking. So you have a record of, if you start seeing that this is happening on a regular basis, we're going to want to address it and figure out why. So quality improvement, what this is, it's an ongoing process, and it starts to help you identify what keeps occurring. And it focuses on the structure, the process, and the outcome. So step one, when I saw these steps, it just totally reminded me of ADPI. First of all, we're going to have assessments, and then we're going to come up with a design or a plan and implement it and then evaluate it, right? So it's almost ADPI. The only thing we missed there was the dental hygiene diagnosis. And the documentation, it's not listed here, but it is part of it. So when you think about it, we're going to assess what happened. So by this complete record, we're going to take records of it, and then we're going to determine what plan do we want to put in place so that people, I don't know, maybe you're having several people getting angry because they got billed for fluoride and didn't give permission or something like that. So you start to notice that this is a problem, and you're going to come up with a plan that we have to make sure we get everybody's permission. Maybe you come up with something for them to sign, and then you're going to implement it, and then you'll evaluate to see if that helped. So you could do that with, whatever. Maybe you are having problems with constant hematomas. I don't know. Okay, so in this particular video, we're going to talk about documentation. That can be a really big part of it. And nowadays, almost all computer records are by the computer, but it used to be that we would write them out. So some of these are kind of old school, and we could talk about it too. But the important part of it is to recognize is that if you have something documented and it comes up legally later, and you have it signed off on that date, so they know it wasn't changed to a later date, they can you can protect yourself. So if they said, well, they told me, they just pulled some wisdom teeth out, and nobody told me that I shouldn't smoke and shouldn't drink through a straw, and now I'm in this excruciating pain. If you have it documented and maybe even a signed document, then that would not hold up in court, right? So it needs to be comprehensive, ongoing, what you provided, what are the outcomes, any patient contacts, similarly, if they don't show for their appointment and they're saying, well, you abandoned me. Well, no, we can prove that you didn't show up the last 3 times. And so we dismissed you as a patient, right? It needs to be in chronological order. Everything needs to be signed and dated. So you notice in our computer, once you sign off, you can't make a change to it. You can make an amendment and add something, but you can't change it. So some of that comes down to that legal record. We want it signed so that we know that somebody can't come back and alter it later for a legal reason. As far as the personal data, you need to have all their health information, their dental history. This is why it's so important to list medications and make sure we update it regularly, because they may not have had Coumadin at the beginning, but by the time, you start doing scaling root planing, they had Coumadin and then they're bleeding to death, right? Or whatever. You want to make sure you're making a clinical note each time and notes from conversations. Now, if you look at this, it says objective, professional, non-judgmental, and it's related to the treatment. So what that means is you never want to say, yeah, the patient won't do anything that I say. It's just like patient refused treatment. And if you want to put something in quotes because you feel like it's very important to document, patient stated, I don't care if I lose all my teeth or something, you could put something like that. But you would put it in quotes. Besides that, it should be you never want to say the patient was whining and crying and, whatever. It's just like patient struggled with treatment, cried, whatever. Okay. So a good documentation record. Now, this is, once again, talking about a paper chart. If you still are using paper charts, run and find a new office. But if you decide to stay and you need to change something, you put a single line through it. So you don't sit there and scribble it out so you can't see it. It needs to show you, they need to be able to read what was under it, and then you're going to initial it right next to it. Correct the information entered with a note of error, and then you're going to sign and date it. And entries made at the time of service by the provider means that you're less likely to forget the info. So, there's times even when I am in practices where I'm so busy that I work all morning, and then before my lunch hour, I sit there and fill in notes because I've just been so busy. The problem with that is sometimes you forget stuff. So it's definitely much better if you're in an office that gives you time to do it as you're going along. you want to avoid abbreviations and jargon. I had one of the students wrote some acronym, and I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm thinking, should I know this? And it was like, I don't know. I can't remember, but I was teasing him and saying, what does this mean? Need more food, or, I don't know. So it has to be very, very specific. For example, everybody knows WNL means within normal limits, or BOP means bleeding on probing. Okay, CAL is clinical attachment loss. Those are things that are normal. Going back to within normal limits, I don't know if you've heard this before, but I've listened to CEs before, and they say WNL in court means we never looked. So instead of that, you may say no significant findings or something like that. But the more specific you can be, the more you protect yourself. As far as documentation, you want to have it be consistent for all patients. So that's why electronic records are nice, because a lot of times they'll have a template and you can kind of fill it in and apply it to your patient. You want to abide by your state law for record keeping, meaning how long you keep them. I think a lot of them are about 7 years, but I honestly don't know what Texas is. Utah was 7 years. Develop guidelines for the order of notes. So we're going to put our extraoral exam, then our intraoral, and then our treatment or whatever. You want to periodically review them. They should be clear, concise, legible, and permanent. An error should be corrected by an additional entry. So if I put a line through something and I initial it, you would go down to the next line and say this, and you'll correct it. It's not like you're trying to squeeze something in there. And we talked about acronyms. Okay, electronic records are acceptable. We use the same guidelines for paper, and they have different protecting things so that you can't alter it. And somebody was saying that even if somebody found a way to alter it later, there are ways that they can identify that if it really came down to a court system. Most systems have that auto note that you can customize. And then the other thing that you want to make sure you're keeping is radiographs, models, photographs. Now, if you remember from our HIPAA, people have the right to get their documents. And you can charge them a minimal fee, but you should be able to provide it within a reasonable amount of time. They have to make the writing, the request in writing and sign something. And confidentiality is a professional obligation with ethical and legal ramifications. So we'll stop here with documentation and pick up with video 2.